Hello and welcome to the Rugby Review Show here on Sunday at 8 p.m. Yes, we have got a chunk of rugby to talk about. Well, mainly two games to talk about, but we might touch on some others as well. Obviously, we had the Maori All Blacks playing last night against Moana Pasifika. I was at that game, and also in the Rugby Championship, we had the final game there, which was the Wallabies versus the Pumas in some pretty atrocious conditions, really. Also, there's been some Autumn Nations Cup action as well, which we might touch on, but I'll be honest, I've not seen any of those games yet. Now, we were having some technical issues, but let's see. Can Stephen hear me now?
I certainly can this time, Paul. It sounded like you're on the moon before, but I am here and ready to go.
Fabulous. I was a bit concerned that it was going to be a bit of a monologue for a while there. But yes, the big game of the weekend, I think, for more than just the rugby, rather than just say maybe not, was that game between the Maori All Blacks and Moana Pasifika. Before those, now I was happy to. Well, I was privileged to get a media pass for the game. So if you head over to New Zealand Sports Radio Facebook page, you can see my post-match interviews with, the post-match conference with the head coach and captain of both the teams, plus also my one-on-one interviews with Caleb Trask and also Dwayne Poliativo. But Stephen, I don't know how much of the pre-match stuff was available on TV. Did you get? Did they show the some of the Moana, some of the Pasifika cultural stuff that was going on in the ground or not?
Yeah. There was a little bit pre-game. Obviously, we saw a rendition of the haka, which was very impressive. But we also saw a bit of a mismatch of the tipi siva, and which is part of the Fijian and Samoan and also the Tongan culture. So yeah, we got all that preview at the beginning, and just sort of added that flavour to what was a great night.
Yeah, because there were the two challenges, but there was also some Pasifika singing and dancing going on as well. That was also part of it, as well as a pre-match game, which I would think which was I've gone blank now, but it was a women's game. I think between Waikato and Auckland or Tamaki Makora, actually using the Maori name. So two Maori sides playing, two female Maori sides playing each other, which was very good. Good to see that Nocturnal Rights can put his book down to come and join us on the show. That's nice. So there was a lot of that during the week on Facebook. There was a lot of that as well, and at the news conference, we were asked to refer to Tano Umanga, not so much as the head coach, but as the chief of the team, using the name, and I've gone blank now. Sorry, folks. It's on my video, which I'm just going to very quickly look on Facebook, so I can bring up the video with it's just there's no volume on.
Is it a Mai Tai, something like that?
No, Fala Logo was the and sorry for the mispronunciation there, folks. I'm sure I got it all wrong, but yeah, clearly, as I say, they really were. Yeah, this is very much a and it's one of the points I made with Dwayne post game, was this is very much a Pacifica side for Pacifica by Pacifica as well. This is not a bunch of Pakeha. It's New Zealand Rugby putting this together and making basically a shambles of it, which, let's be honest, we've seen happen in the past, which I think is good. Yes, the challenges at the beginning, a bit of obviously with the Moana Pasifika representing multiple cultures, they melded those together.
Oh, exactly, Paul, and that mixture obviously was out from the Samoan haka, which is the Siva toe, and then they also have the Sipi toe, which is the part of the Tongan haka, and also the Fijian, which is the Sibi. And like yourself, I apologise if I haven't quite nailed the pronunciation of that as well. So it was very, very passionate, and the Maori haka was very passionate as well. So it was a good start to what we always thought was going to be an entertaining contest, but very respectful contest without too much niggle.
Yeah, and the name of that one is Tua Kuakua. It's for those of you who want to know that one. Simon says there's new information on who's behind the team. Well, that'd be nice to know. Listening to some of the comments made by people off record, I think a lot of the people were basically doing it. Were volunteering their services to make this game happen. I think there's a lot of people who were not getting paid for this one. So obviously when they become a proper Super Rugby side and have a whole season, they're going to need to pay people. They can't continue having the whole team sort of infrastructure behind it being volunteers, which I say is what it was so far, as far as I'm aware anyway. I don't even know if the players got paid. That'll be to maybe ask Wayne that when we next see him. Not trying about saying Dwayne had a good 7 minutes. He did. He's got to try. And if you listen to our interview, he'll talk you through that 60-meter try, which I asked him about. He puts it all onto the foot. Anyway, by the way, new type of beer tonight, Catalina for me. But there we go. So Stephen, look, it was a festival of culture around it, but we'll allow you to get some work promotion in there. It was a festival, sort of festival, a cultural festival around it. This was not festival rugby though, was it? This was a proper. This. I mean, straight away, penalty off the kickoff, and the first thing that Moana Pasifika do is knock over three. They were here to win the game rather than try and play entertaining rugby. Winning was the purpose of this one, wasn't it?
Oh, very much so. I think probably the other thing that was quite noticeable very early in the piece was the line speed of both sides. Paul, they were putting a lot of pressure on each other. They were putting a lot. I know New Zealand Maori were putting a lot of pressure on the Moana Pacific clearance as well. Hence a couple of charge downs. So it just goes to show they were up for this game. Yes, it may be viewed as something very, very special, this particular game, but yeah, at the end of the day, they both teams still wanted the W beside their name.
There were a couple of comments up in the media box that could they manufacture a draw for this one, but that was definitely never on the cards. I did ask the New Zealand rugby guy in the media box whether there was going to be golden time or extra time, and he didn't seem to know. So we'll have to. But yes. In contrasting skulls, Moana Pasifika taking those 3 points each time, whereas the Maori All Blacks with Ash Dixon there going to the corner. Clearly, he likes driving more, doesn't he?
Oh, he very much does so. But credit to Moana Pasifika, because for a side, both sides obviously thrown together. I thought they defended that line-out drive, that initial line-out drive. I think that was when Messam, I think, was got penalised for a double movement. But I think they actually did really well to quell that game. It was strange. There was some odd bounces on the field, but I think that's got more to do where we are in the scheme of things. We're almost into we're in December, aren't we, Paul? So the grounds are extremely hard, and you could see the odd bounce every now and again.
Yes, absolutely, and so we had basically Moana Pasifika putting on pressure whenever they got the opportunity for penalty. They would go to go sticks, whereas we had the Maori All Blacks go in the corner, and they must have gone to the corner about 5 times, and they only pulled off 1 try out of those. So you say good defence by the Pacifica forwards, because I say there's a number of guys in there who enjoy that thing. Ash Dixon got asked during the media conference afterwards about the line-out mauls, and he explained that look, it takes a lot of practice. It's not, and whilst it might come across as boring, to some people, it also wears out the opposition. He says, look, we've got a scrum penalty after one of those line-out mauls. Sure, we didn't score the try, but we wore them down, and we took advantage of that afterwards. So I know a lot of us will probably look at a line-out maul and go, okay, if you didn't score the try, you failed. Whereas I think the players' philosophy, or for some teams, not for every team, is that it's part of the wearing down process of the opposition and trying to tire them out. It's not just about the only. Obviously, they want the try, but that's not the only purpose of the maul.
Oh, listen, Paul. I thought both teams had a really good, more so at scrum. Had a really good set piece scrum. Was a good even scrum battle, and neither team actually got on top of each other during that time. But I actually thought one area where the New Zealand Maori were very good, and that's the beauty of having such a really good, promising forward. Manaki Selby-Rickett is just so good on the air, but he's good on other people's ball as well. He's quite a light lock, and I actually thought he was one person along with Walker Leawere who enhanced their reputations, Paul, and I thought they actually worked really well as a combination. Leawere, Walker doing the graft, and of course Manaki Selby-Rickett, very mobile around the field and good in the air.
No, yeah, absolutely. And you got to remember this: both these sides. I mean, obviously, the Moana Pasifika side haven't played together before, haven't existed before, and have had 1 week's worth of training. The Maori All Blacks, now, whilst they do meet every year, I think there was something like 8 or so debutants in that side. So you're looking at nearly half out of the 23 of the side being brand new. So again, a lot of players. I mean, I don't know if Quintapaia and Proctor played together under 20s, but if they didn't, then this would have been their first time together. So you've got to one of them obviously from Wellington, the other one from Waikato. So you've there's for teams that had so little preparation time together, the way they played from a connectivity point of view, I thought was very good, especially when both of them highlight the amount of time they spent doing cultural stuff rather than actually what do you call it? Actually rugby training in the build up to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine there would have been a lot, Paul. On saying that, like I say, I think there were some guys that really enhanced their reputation. Nocturnal Rights just mentions the Billy Proctor try, and I agree that was a try that was in the great traditions of Maori rugby. But in the modern game, if you've got some strengths, you've got to utilise those strengths. I know there was a bit said in the social network about the Maoris being a bit boring and kicking to the corner, but boy, if you've got a team that can, there are times you've got to keep the ball away from the other team, and you've got to be a little bit tight, because I think if the Maoris had been a little bit more loose, I think that game would have actually suited Moana Pasifika. So there were times that they actually had to tighten those games up. Another player who I actually thought enhanced his reputation, Paul, and it was interesting to see him playing at second 5, was Paul Tupaia. We know him as a centre, but watching him at at second five last night, I must say I was mildly impressed.
Yeah, and as you say, we've only seen him in the 13 jersey for Waikato and also for the Chiefs so far. So seeing in that 12 jersey, I thought, especially considering who those two guys are up against, I thought they did have a good one there. The Nocturnal writes, so gives us a player spotted. For those of you who listen to the Blood and Mud podcast, you'll understand my reference there. But he reckons he saw Josh Honeyneck in Dunedin on Friday lunchtime. Was playing Saturday night in Hamilton. There was definitely a number of players that were called up last minute to the Maori All Blacks. Remember, they only picked 24 men in their original squad, and I think had 2 or 3 go down injured. So there were definitely players who were called in at the last minute to play for the Maori All Blacks as well.
Yeah, Paul, I was going to say good shift too from both Honeck and Rakete Stones. I thought their work rate around the fringes with the number of tackles they made, along with Ash Dixon, even though he missed a vital one. Oh, it wasn't vital. He missed a tackle very, very late in the game. But Ash Dixon always seems to play most of the games that he plays in for a guy who's coming towards the end of his career. But I actually thought not only did the props do very, very well at scrum time, but I actually thought they did a lot of tackling around the fringes. It was just seemed like it was one of those sort of games.
Yep. In the first half, so 3 penalties plus that Trask hitting the line at pace, and boy, that was an impressive try. I talked to him after the game about that one. Then into the second half, when they had Ash Dixon try, we've had a mention about the Proctor try. The Nani Satoro comes on, and they took off. I think they ended up taking off both of their. I think Manuel Samoa took off both of their centres and ended up playing with 2 fly halves and 5 outside backs, which was or 4 outside backs. Sorry, which was an interesting one. Manuel Samoa put in, got a good break, but the conversion hit the post on that one. I think Josh Ioane had a decent game. He's been taking some flack recently. I suppose has had some dodgy performances for Otago, but I thought in this setup he did really well. Probably helped by the fact of having a really good 9 who took a lot of that pressure off him in Fakatava, who really had a good game, even if he's still carrying a pillow around the back of his head. So Alamalo, Motoya scored the powered over for the Moana Pasifika. Then Karpik came on to score for the. It was a 2-on-1. Basically, line out more, got stopped. It come in field. They went back to the blind side. There was a 2-on-1 there. Karpik just dummied and went over. Pretty simple try. And then Dwayne's 60-meter one. Well, 4 or 5 meter one anyway. Scrum.
I was going to say, Paul, give him a bit of credit. He showed a bit of strength to get across the line.
He did, absolutely. He had to. It wasn't some. He did. Yeah, he had some work to do, and got across. Like his description of it was, well, the boys, the forwards pushed forward, and I just had to put it down, which I think was a little bit modest of him, overly modest, to be honest with you.
Oh, listen, I've got to say, what a year for Dwayne. It's been winning the Mitre 10 Cup with Tasman, and what a great way for Dwayne Politavao to finish his season.
Absolutely. I mean, for a guy who was captain of the Utah Warriors in the middle of the States, I mean, a million miles from, as I said in the interview, a million miles from the water, to come back and then represent a team connected by the ocean, really was has been a bit of a crazy. No, I'm talking about Moana Pasifika. The islands connected by they're not separated by the oceans. The oceans are their highway. They're connected by the oceans. See, I'm getting into all this cultural stuff.
Yeah, I know you are. You
every
are.
day.
I know you're starting to sound like Sir David Attenborough, but anyway.
But as you say, yeah, as well as picking up with Tasman as well. Yeah, it's been a very strange year, and you've got to look. You've got to take these. I know there's a lot of commentary around at the moment about how bad 2020 has been, but yeah, for some people, you've got to take the silver lining from it as well. And yeah, he was not expecting to have. He didn't have Microsoft 10 contracts before the season. He definitely wasn't expecting Moana Pasifika to happen either. He was just expecting to play in the States.
Paul, Paul, I'm just going to mention, while some players may have enhanced their reputation, I've got to say in the last couple of weeks, I've just, for me, Salisi Rayasi, who we acknowledge was probably one of the better players of the 2020 Mitre 10 Cup, once again a little bit quiet on the night. Was just a case of maybe Moana Pasifika not getting the ball in the right positions and giving him a bit of space, because he seemed really quiet. It seemed like we were seeing more of the Maori wingers than we actually were of the Moana Pasifika wingers.
Yeah, I mean, also Lester Whainuku, also a pretty quiet night as well. You're quite right. Yeah, I don't think they really managed to, pardon me, pull off what everything that they were trying to necessarily. Yeah, perhaps they played a bit of a narrower game. In that, and maybe that does come down to just a matter of how much game time or how much preparation time do you have? Zero.
Let's be honest. I thought it'd be remiss of me not to mention Sean Stevenson as well. We know Sean Stevenson's one of those players that he possesses a really good skill set, and I really do like the fact that he's a fullback with a very, very big boot as well. But boy, looked dangerous every time he got ball in his hand. Obviously, that a break that he made down the sideline, Trask just touching the line, that would have been a good try had it been completed.
Oh, as the All Blacks Twitter account said, yeah, best non-try of the season. Yes, he's a player who has a fairly languid style, and so someone that can be criticised by fans for not really trying, because he has such a laid-back style of play. Now, I'm pretty sure he does try, and he showed his strength as well as positioning and game now in this game, which I think was very good as well. So yes, he had a good game. It'll be interesting to see how he goes at the Chiefs next year. Look, obviously he plays 15 for North Harbour, but with Trask and David McKenzie, he's not going to be playing 15, is he? He's going to be playing on the wing. So it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see how much game time Trask gets next year, when you've got Gatland possibly at 10, and then and Dave McKenzie at 15. Where does Trask fit in? That's a good. I want to know, because he's been playing some cracking rugby this season. Play with the Terry Black at Bay of Plenty. He's been playing at 15 a lot this year. And boy, oh boy, did it. And I guess, and he fits in that mold of a lot of teams nowadays wanting to have that second playmaker, so they can play either side of the ruck. And he suits that very well at 15. Definitely. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much game time he gets. Because I say, yeah, he's a really promising player. Yes, perhaps a comedy moment of the game was Rayasi trying to kick the ball and missing it entirely. So yeah, look, really enjoyable game. As someone said in higher up there, that look, the time flew by watching this one, and it did. This was you definitely this game didn't. You weren't kind of thinking, geez, this is taking. It kept moving. There's lots going on. It was a really enjoyable game to watch. So yeah, cracking game, and already comments of, oh, could this be an annual fixture, or should there be a 3-test series, a bit like the Bledisloe Cup and all this kind of stuff? Let's just wait and see. Also, one that we'll discuss probably on Tuesday evening is that Ash Dixon mentioned during the post-match interview that hey, if we're going to have this Moana Pasifika Super Rugby side, why don't we have a Maori Super Rugby side? So,
Wow.
he said he didn't want to start any arguments, but boy, oh boy,
I think he has. I would suggest that if we've got a sharp journalist around, that'll get picked up on the wires this week. I would imagine that comment.
So we'll discuss that one on Tuesday night. Is the Maori All Blacks place in future, perhaps as a Super Rugby side rather than as a sort of quasi international side? We'll have to wait and see. So we'll have a chat about that on Tuesday evening. We'll also review talking about anything else from that game before we move on.
No, that's about it. I suppose something that I was a little bit unusual towards the end of the game was the two props who finished for the Maoris. You had almost like a 15-year gap between Ross Wright and Tamaiti Williams. Tamaiti Williams, of course, a former Whangarei Boys high school product who's been drafted down to Canterbury, and boy, what a sizable kid he is. I saw him standing beside one of the locks, and he looked like he was almost looking them in the eye. So what a promising young man, and I think the Crusaders for him is the perfect place to be, especially with the likes of Joe Moody and guys like that in the frame. And of course, Ross Wright. Listen, he played 100 games for Northland this year, and if it's the last time we see Ross at this level of rugby, along with Liam Messam, man, thank you guys very, very much. You've been great servants of the game. Well, the perfect ending for Liam Messam would have been a try, but he did the old double movement. But listen, what a fine, outstanding individual he is, and like I say, credit to Ross Wright if it's his last time running around. One heck of a way to go out.
Absolutely, yes. It's a game to remember. Most definitely, this one will be. An interesting one there about the size of the prop, and it was one of the ones that I can't remember which game it was now. I was watching a game recently, and yes, this very tall prop came on, and one of the comments also from that was, look, from a scrummaging point of view, how difficult that makes it for the lock at scrum time when you've got one bum that might be 4 or 5 inches away from where, if you're a short hooker anyway, away from where the hooker's bum is distance wise, and how that alters how you push and things. So it's going to be and also we've talked previously about players who with a long back can get out scrummaged even if they're more powerful because by a more stocky prop. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes being quite so tall, because there are disadvantages of that when you are a prop as well. Yeah,
I see often I know Ofa Fasi in the early days. In his early days, struggled at scrum time. He's become better over the years, but once again, very, very tall man. Angus Tawao is another very tall man that sometimes seems to struggle against the shorter, squatter props as well. I suppose it's just genetics, Paul, the way it is. But boy, these are big men. We know how effective they are on the carry. They take a few people to drive them down. But listen, I think the modern props these days, Paul, is just not just about scrumming. It's about work rate.
Oh, it's about work rate. It's also about lifting at the line out as well. A tall prop obviously lift a jumper higher as well. So it's a swings and roundabouts thing. It's not all about scrummaging, but it does create an interesting problem or an interesting situation to solve at scrum time. So the other big game for us down south anyway was Australia or the Wallabies taking on the Pumas. And a good evening, Jordan, who's joining us a bit late. Great to have you along in the live chat. Don't forget, folks, well, I was going to say we're here at 8 p.m. every Sunday, but this is probably our last one. I think one of the things that's been, it's the end of the season. And it's really interesting. Well, it's been interesting having these games down south in our time zone where it's very clearly the end of it's the end. The season's been marked by these two games as being sort of the cutoff. Whereas previously, you kind of have the season ends here, and then the sides go over to Europe, and we have the November tour, and we have the games up there. And so the kind of it's not such a clean end or clean break at the end of the season. Whereas this is this has brought a clean break to the end of the season. So the review show I think will probably disappear on a Sunday evening and come back for Super Rugby, basically because of a lack of rugby games to kind of review that are local.
I was going to say, unless you want to send us your backyard video games of rugby and we can dissect all of those. Maybe not.
Maybe not. Yes, maybe not. Maybe we'll skip that one. The Driving Ball show on Tuesday night will continue throughout is a 52-week a year thing, so that will continue. Don't worry. But yes, the Sunday Rugby review show will take a break after this week until Super Rugby comes around, and we'll kick off back again then. So yes, the Nocturnal Rights Oz game was dour and hard. Conditions played a big part, though. They played a big part but more so in the second half than the first half, I think. And we can blame the conditions for the performance in the second half. I'm not sure we can put all the blame on the conditions for how the Wallabies played in this one, Stephen.
Yeah, it's really crazy. You know, when you think of the Eastern Seaboard in Australia in December, the first week of December, you probably think it's going to be close to 30 degrees, hot, sunny. Definitely not. It looked like monsoon rain when that came in on the second half, but it was on the back of a very, very unusual night. Unusual because it started unusually with the Indigenous anthem for Australian rugby, which is so it just shows you maybe their times are changing in Australia as well, and maybe it's just maybe a reflection of their culture. We know that the current Australian rugby team is got a big Pacific Island element in it at the moment. So whether that's got a wee bit to do with it, and maybe the Australian Rugby Union are just sort of ethically trying to get more in touch with their own being. I don't know, maybe similar to what we do in New Zealand here. But listen, I think it's a good thing. Great to see.
No, absolutely. And I'm frantically trying to find going into LinkedIn for a post, because there was a post in there by an ex-Wallaby. I will find that where he talks about this. And one of the things he talked about is that basically this looks like a here we go. So Bo Robinson posted in there, and he says that he sees this as basically being a shift in terms of purpose for the Wallabies, and that in the past they used to represent the Wallabies and Australian rugby community. Now it's about, he thinks it's about, he said this is a move showing that it's representing Australia and all Australians rather than just the rugby community. And he said it was when he chatted with Liam Messam last year. It was interesting that when they talked about Dave Rennie, was that at the time at the Chiefs, one of the big focus areas there was a sense of was Dave Rennie bringing a sense of greater purpose than just playing rugby. So I think this is I think a big part of this might be Dave Rennie having a hand in this and showing and saying, look, guys, this is what playing for Australia, not for the not necessarily just for the Wallabies, means, and we need to be. I think he's perhaps having a part of this as well.
Yeah, and that anthem was done in the language of the Eora Nation, which is the local coastal tribes from around the New South Wales area. So yeah, a really nice moment. And yeah, there's a lot of feedback coming from former Australian Wallabies great Matt Giteau called it a very special moment. in Australian sport, along with Kurtley Beale. So it's wonderful to see, and I think it's that sense of being. So whatever works for them.
Yep, no, absolutely. I guess one of the problems they might have was over here, and I'm probably going to be putting my foot straight in it. Is that we have a fairly recognised Maori language across. Whilst I'm sure there are, and I'm aware there are variances across the country, but there's kind of an accepted standard language which we can do with the song. Whereas, am I wrong there? Because whereas I think the First Nations, I think they've got very different languages over Australia. So trying to pick one language to use is will be much harder for them.
Yeah, well, the Te Reo Māori anthem is just really a rendition of the English language, isn't it? But in Māori.
Yeah, no. What I'm saying is that we don't have multiple Maori languages. You can. There is one main.
Oh yes,
yes. Recognised together, whereas in Australia they've got like 5 or 6 First Nations. I'm sorry, I'm just pulling that number out my arse. I don't know how many there are, but I believe, and I could be very wrong, but that they'll have very different languages, and it's not just there isn't just sort of an Aborigine language or First Nations. I'm not sure which word I'm supposed to use, but in that. But yeah, no, great move by them, and clearly they chose the language where they were playing, which makes a lot of sense. Especially when it's a welcome to nation, a welcome to the land that they have at the beginning as well. Thankfully, as far as I know, he didn't welcome the Netherlands this week. Now, there is one thing we can rejoice about here, folks, about this one, and I think this probably goes across all rugby fans. Okay, so Nocturnal Rights reckons there's about 120 Aboriginal languages in Australia. So yes, a few more than 250. Sorry, he says. So yes, more than my 5 or 6 that I suggested.
Get that man on the payroll.
Yeah.
But there is no pay.
There is no pay. No. And Dr. Wright says, Phil Kearns is there for comedy, I think. Jordan mentioned, shocking biasness by Phil Kearns. Absolutely, there was. And I say the one thing we can't talk about: 25 years, folks, that Fox Sports have had rugby union in Australia, and they've lost it. Yes. So next year we won't have to have Phil Kearns. So that is one thing that is that we can rejoice about. Other people who've lost their jobs, I feel sad for. Phil Kearns, I'll be blunt, I don't. He should have lost his job a long time ago. Suggesting that Angus Gardner should just put his whistle in his pocket, just ignore stuff so that the game could flow, it was a new low for him. Absolutely appalling commentary from him in that game. Whilst we're talking about that, though, we should probably talk about yellow and red cards in this one.
I think we should also discuss that try that the Argentinians scored in the first half, because it was a heck of a good try. Admittedly, I think it was under advantage, but boy, there was some great opportunity from the halfback, Bautista Delgado, down that sideline, and a really, really good finish there from the substitute Domingo Miotti as well, with the big handoff, heading off for a good try. So that was probably the real bright spot of that first half, I've got to say. But in between times, not a lot of rugby, and of course a lot of infractions.
A lot of infractions, yes. And with that, you saw again different philosophy. Australia, the Pumas kicking to the posts and taking points. The Australians going to the corner and not scoring. And you're like, come on, guys. If there's anything we've learned about the rugby, about the Tri Nations or the Rugby Championship tournament this year, is that on the whole, these games are close. Yeah, 3 points is more than enough to win a game. So, so there is actually why Australia just kept turning down 3 points early in the game. Just get yourself on the board, get yourself ahead, get some points, settle down, and keep going. Yeah. Some very, very poor captaincy from Hooper in this game.
I I agree, Paul, because I think we discussed this before. I think with Argentina, they're one of those teams that if you keep building points, a little bit of momentum, I think a little bit of scoreboard pressure goes on them. But if you don't take your opportunities, they will fight and scrap defensively like you wouldn't believe. And I think they gain a lot of confidence from their defensive attributes. And it's one of those things. I think they're the sort of team, if you leave them in the fight, boy, you're asking for trouble.
Yeah, they defend exceptionally well. Hence why the Wallabies had 70% possession and didn't win the game. And yes, they have got some extremely dangerous backs, as we saw in that try in that first half. So if you do turn the ball over and they get an opportunity to counterattack, you can be in some real trouble. And fine, Corabetti, absolute howler defensively, comes in to the player that Hodge has got, whilst Hodge is telling him to stay out away on the other player, turns his back on that other player, and as soon as that player gets the ball, he then has Corabetti can't see him which way he's running, so all he has to do is wait until Corabetti turns around and run to the other side of him, which is exactly what he did. Handed off the other player, and boy, in he goes to score. Great score to do it. I probably couldn't do it, obviously. Say, oh, all he's got to do is just wait for Corabetti to turn around. But still, Corabetti got that one totally wrong, and that was horrible defending by him. Such a good player, don't get me wrong, especially with ball in hand, but defensively there, he read it totally wrong, and that's and Argentina got the try and got the lead at was it half-time lead, I think.
They took it out. Well, I think they were ahead 6-3, and with the conversion around about the 36th minute, that took it out to 13-3. And boy, even in the conditions and with the rain started to come in, that's a comfortable lead in those conditions. But of course, once we got into the second half, it was more of the same. A lot of penalties and more discipline.
And you got to say that, yes, Argentina will be kicking themselves, right? They should have won this game. They were, as you say, 9-13 up, and then knock over a penalty when so on 61 minutes. Not only are they 9-16 ahead, but Salahai Lotto has been sent to has been red carded as well. You're a man up with 20 minutes to go. Scoring has been extremely difficult in the game. Sure, it's only a 5-point lead, but hey, it's a lead. And they should have closed the game out from there.
It's quite interesting, Paul. Usually with a red card and a shoulder to the head, we'd all be sort of a little outraged. But now it's normalised. We're just looking at that, going, "Yep, it's a red card. It is what it is." And I thought initially when I saw it, I thought, "Nah, you actually had time to change your level of your tackle. You were rushing out to the guy. You should have just lowered your target a little bit lower. And for a tall man, you're too high. These guys have just got to fix their technique. They're just not learning, Paul."
When you've got the Australian commentators even going, "Oh my word, hadn't players taken the message of the 2 yellow cards in the first half? You have to drop your height, folks." Even when they're not complaining about the card, you know that it was smack on dead red.
And you've got Phil Coons in agreement as well.
Yeah, Phil Coons. It's a travesty. Put those cards back in your pocket. No, you didn't do that. You kind of like, wow, that was as obviously red under the current way rugby is officiated as anything you'll see. So yeah, no arguments at all. And as I say, they should have closed it out from there. Multiple infractions from themselves. One of the things they did know was that they could give away as many penalties as they felt like in their own 22, because Australia weren't going to kick 3. Yeah. So if you're not going to be kicking your 3s to punish it, they're just going to happily go, okay, we're just going to play on this game line the whole time.
Paul, there's a certain irony that Australia turning down all these penalty kicks at games, but in 3 of the games that have pretty much cost them are probably last-minute kicks at goal, which I find really ironic.
And one person you've got to feel sorry for is Reece Hodge. Okay, so the draw against New Zealand, what does he do? He hits the post. The draw against the Pumas 2 weeks ago, he misses. The draw here again, he misses, and he knows. Afterwards, he grins, and he's kind of like, "Oh my God, it's happened to me again." And some people have been saying, "Look," I've seen on Twitter going, "Look, you shouldn't be grinning. You should be really upset by this." One of the things we try and tell players and try and instill in players is how, if you make a mistake, put it out of your mind and do the next thing right. Don't let that mistake hurt the rest of your game. And here we are with a guy who makes a mistake, finds a way of getting it out of his mind and continue playing, and then he gets told off for not being upset enough. Sorry, folks, that's not what it's supposed to be about. Professional player, well, all players. Look, if you make a mistake, put it out of your mind, do the next thing right. We should definitely not be having a go at Reece Hodge for missing these. Hey, look, at least he steps up and takes them, and generally has been playing well this tournament. So yeah, tough one for him.
Once again, Paul, it comes back to the captaincy, as you previously said. But on saying all that, credit to the Australians. They clawed their way back into the game despite being down a man. And of course, during that time, it was the Argentinians that got ill-disciplined when they collapsed them all. So, yeah, really weird. Both teams not learning.
Yep. Then Argentina picked up a yellow, so they lost their advantage. Hooper scored his 20th try, I think it is, so I think he's the highest scoring forward for Australian internationals. And Reece Hodge knocked over the conversion to even things up. So yes, they wouldn't have been in this game if Reece Hodge hadn't kicked his other kicks. It's just a shame. It's just a shame for him that he missed one kick all game, folks. It's not like he was having a shocker with the boot. We've seen Bowden Barrett have a shocker with the boot and lose a game, right? Where he's missed 4 or 5. But when you've just missed one, then look, it's not the kicker's fault that the game was that close. So yeah. Atrocious conditions, not the best game to watch, but congratulations to the All Blacks on winning the Tri-Nations. Probably more to do with the undoing of Australia, because if you kind of look at 2 of those, they could have, out of those three draws, they most definitely probably should have won all 3 of them, and really should have walked away with a trophy, but they've ended up with nothing. Yep.
The fact that they've ended up at the bottom of the table.
And we will on Tuesday evening we will go through, just like we did for the Mitre 10 Cup, giving and reviewing the season for each of the teams. We'll review the season for each of the Sanzar teams as well on Tuesday evening. So do join us for that, and we'll give you our opinion as to how did the All Black season go, how did the Wallaby season go, how did the Pumas season go, and why can't the Springboks play rugby? But there is one team that will come out of 2020 with a perfect record. Overnight, we had 3 games in the Autumn Nations Cup. Georgia lost to Fiji 24-38, meaning that Fiji will finish the year with a 100% record, having won all of their test matches.
And just reading that scoreline, Paul, sounded like I saw a few highlights of some of the tries that they scored. Obviously, a bit of a chat with Namani Nandolo at the end of the game. I think he was named the man of the match, and yeah, it was quite an emotional interview if you've caught that. And obviously, a lot of pent up frustration, shall we say? But it also probably shows that Georgia with still a little bit more work to do, Paul.
A little bit, a lot more. They lost me $3. They've managed to lose to a team. This is no disrespect to Fiji, who basically have not been able to train for the past month, right? They've not been able to train. They've been stuck in their rooms. Their training regime has been running around their room to keep fit for most of the last month. And a bunch of those players have had COVID, have been sick, and Georgia still lost. I mean, seriously, that's not the preparation um, for that Fiji team was appalling. Not through no fault of their own. But yeah, having COVID meant they've missed their other three Autumn Nations Cup games, which is an absolute shame. So hence I predicted a Georgia victory on that, because I just couldn't see this Fiji team having had any. But I guess in some ways they're used to having no preparation when coming together because of the way that the tier 2 nations get treated by World Rugby.
Interesting, Paul, and a team that I've got to say, a little harsh on in the last couple of years, because I've questioned whether they're actually good enough to be in the Six Nations. But I've been watching a little bit of Italy during the Autumn Nations Cup, and I'm starting to see some little incremental improvements in their game. A little bit more flair added. Looks like they've got a young first five and young midfield pairing, and they're just giving the ball a little bit more air. And I thought they showed a little bit of character after being down to Wales by about, I think they were down about 17-5 or 17-3, something like that, to actually battle their way back to 18-17. And if you saw the look on Wayne Pivac's face with about 15 minutes to go, he was not impressed at all. He's a man under the pump, so he went to his bench and pulled a lot of his guns on. And of course, Wales scoring some late tries to pull away from Italy at the end of the day. So I'm not too sure if you're seeing that same improvement, Paul.
No, absolutely. It's they're a side that seems that stays in the fight for the first sort of half, 60 odd minutes, and then doesn't have the bench and the fitness to compete towards the end. And yeah, they went down 14-0 in the first 20 minutes, came back to 14-13 at half time, and were leading 17-18, leading by a point, going into, as you say, the
last quarter.
Well, again, 58 minutes is when Wales started to pull away and scored 3 tries. But clearly they were competitive for a chunk of the game. They were competitive for a chunk of the French game before they went behind, and then lost track. So it's you usually say improvement by Italy. Wales won that one 38-18 in the end, but again, it's that last quarter where Italy is struggling. And I'll be honest, I haven't seen the game yet. No, I also haven't seen the Ireland Scotland game, which finished 31-16. In this one, apparently. Sexton threw a bit of a strop when he came off, but even though if he came off injured as well, but I don't think he was particularly happy. Another one where Scotland kept in it until half time, 11-9 at half time. But early in the second half, a couple of tries opened the gap out to 25-9, and it was all over then. Let's be honest. For Scotland. Again, Scotland very good at home, struggling away from home.
Yeah, it's sort of gone to plan, I suppose. We've got just the one game to come, which is tomorrow's final between England and France, Paul. But of course, the French clubs have had a bit of a say in terms of the team that the French are going to put out on the paddock, which is disappointing.
Yes and no. So yes, they had a say. Is it disappointing? Basically a lot of these players are top level professionals in France. They are very good players. This is not actually going to be the walkover that I think a lot of people expect. France have got a lot of depth. And what this is allowing them to do, look, remember, we're at the beginning of a World Cup cycle. They're going to get to know whether these players can cut it or not, and it'll be really good experience for them heading towards the World Cup in 2023. At the end of the day, listening to a lot of podcasts, or listening to several podcasts from Europe, no one cares, or no one seems to care about this competition. and a few people have said, look, we don't want to see England, Wales, Ireland, Scotland, whatever, outside of the Six Nations. It means something in the Six Nations.
Yeah.
This made-up competition hasn't really caught people's imaginations, from what I can tell, and therefore, and we've seen that by these sort of by Fabien Galtier deciding that, hey, I'm going to use, I'm not going to keep my best players for the final. I'm going to blocks of 3, so that the players stay with me and don't be chopped and changed, which makes a lot of sense. But if he was taking this seriously, he would have saved his best players for this one and rested them against Italy, for example. So yeah, it goes to show that it's good to have the games. Don't get me wrong, but it's not something that I think it's not something that's caught the imagination of the fans.
Yeah, no, I suppose you're right, Paul, and it's interesting. Aaron Ranchard just said, did anyone in New Zealand watch the Autumn Cup from up north besides Paul? Well, I hate to tell you this, Aaron, but I do watch a bit of it. And I also, from the Northern Hemisphere, I've been watching, interestingly enough, to see how that goes, is the Premiership Rugby. And one game that I watched on Saturday morning, had a bit of a lie-in, and I watched the Bristol Newcastle game. And, of course, Bristol, with a last-minute penalty goal, resigned Northampton to the bottom of the table. But the interesting thing for me in the table is the newly promoted team, Newcastle Falcons, sitting on 12 points, Paul.
Yes, 3 wins, no try-bonus points so far. But extra 3 wins and 3 try-bonus points means that, Exeter Chiefs are going to be the team to beat again this year, folks, if you hadn't guessed. Give them the title now, folks, because no one else is challenging so far. Newcastle, fantastic start to the season, and a season that was going to be that was where you're looking at thinking that there's a whole bunch of teams that actually can get relegated this year, and it's quite often the team that gets promoted that yo-yos up and down. So it was important for Newcastle to get a good start, and to be 3 victories on the bounce. You've got to say they're nearly safe already. In all honesty, when you think that last year that Leicester, who effectively finished bottom, obviously Saracens got pet points taken away from them, but Leicester, who finished 11th, only had 6 wins all season. Newcastle have already had 3. Newcastle's is in a good is almost safe already. So it's very impressive by Newcastle. You've got to say what's going on, and I've suddenly gone blank. The ex-Hurricanes coach, who is
Chris Boyd.
Yep.
Yeah, he's
It looked like he'd turned the corner last season. Got them playing some nice rugby, but since COVID, they've just been a mess.
Yes, it's small margins. I mean, so the first 2 games, well and truly thumped in the first round. They were well beaten by Sale. In the second round, they were once again pretty much beaten by 20 points by Harlequins. And of course, this latest game where they were pretty desperate for a win, admittedly playing away in Bristol. Just losing in the last minute was a bittersweet pill to take. With our own domestic rugby season finishing, I always have an interest in how all the Kiwi boys are doing up in the Northern Hemisphere. And of course, that was Pat Lamb's day, not Chris Boyd's day, but you also had a couple of New Zealanders running around for Northampton. Matt Proctor, brother of Billy Proctor, running around for Northampton these days, and Liki Leilua, who'd played for the Hurricanes, and of course there's Piers Francis, the ex-Bluesman who played for England, also running around. But yeah, definitely a day for Bristol that included evergreen prop John Afua at 36 years old, and he's playing so well they're looking at maybe extending his contract for another 1 year. So good for John Afua.
Yeah, looking at this season and last season, Northampton Saints have won 1 game since they've come out of lockdown, and that was against London Irish. So yeah, you've got to wonder how long Chris Boyd will last with that kind of record, because it really has gone wrong for them.
Yeah, Paul. It'll be interesting to see how things play out, and we'll keep a closer on it once all the internationals come back into the Premiership. But I'll be keeping an eye, just for our viewers out there. But both Paul and I will probably keep an eye on the results there. Of course, there's a few New Zealanders running around in those particular teams. Almost seems sad, Paul. We've come to the end of our domestic season. Just a couple of sevens tournaments. Just wanted a quick shout out to the players that were involved in the Ignite Sevens down at Blake Park in Tauranga over the last couple of days. Congratulations to Georgia Miller, the young 16-year-old who was part of the Bolt women's team that took out the trophy this year. Only 16 years old, voted the player of the tournament. And whilst his team, the Surge, didn't win the tournament, the Bolt men's took out the victory this year. Playing for the Surge, one Brady Rush, who represented Northland this year, taking out the player of the tournament for the men. So congratulations to both of them. Whether that gets them a contract, we'll have to wait and see. So definitely some promising players running around in that tournament. Don't forget, we've also got the Condor Sevens coming up on Thursday. Not exactly sure where that's being played. And I think there's a tens tournament down your way on the weekend, Paul. I think it might be being played in Cambridge. You'll have to keep an eye on that. So that could be an interesting one to head along as well if you're not busy with your girls.
Well, I've got my girls this weekend, so no, I'm afraid I'm not available to head out this weekend. I made a big mistake today, folks. So I thought I would walk from Waihi to a tavern. Stephen Hale was organising a Twitter catch up for drinks, and Google reckoned it was a 2-hour walk. By 2 hours, I was nowhere near it, and tried hitchhiking. No one stopped for me, which was disgusting. 2 people actually stuck the middle finger up at me while they drove past, which I thought was a bit uncalled for. People not stopping, I get it. I understand why you don't stop somebody, but sticking your finger up at someone who's hitchhiking was like, really? What's anyway? I laughed, but so yes. So I then stopped in the local cafe and walked the 2 hours home instead, and ended up being out for like 5.5 hours. And I've got blisters on my feet now, but never mind. Not the best of days for me. And Stephen's muted.
I'll give you a tip, Paul, next time you're hitchhiking, mate. Pop on some dark glasses, carry a cane, and just sort of tap the ground as you're walking walking along. And I'm sure there will be a sympathetic eye that would have stopped and picked you up.
Dear. So yes, it was as Aaron says, a nice day for a walk. It was a nice day for a walk. I'm not sure that me showing some leg would have helped someone pull over.
No.
So yes. Okay, folks. Thank you all very much. As I say, this is the final rugby review show of the year. We'll be back next year for Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU. As well as the Mitre 10 Cup and all the international action as well. So don't forget to like, subscribe, follow on whatever platform you are using. And also you can head over to, by the way, as Stephen said, we will be keeping an eye on all the European action. And every week I post up predictions for all of the leagues on nzsportradio.com. If you're a supporter of those, you'll get to see them straight away. If you're not a supporter of New Zealand Sport Radio, then you'll have to wait until Friday when I unlock them. But yes, priority access for supporters of all those predictions. Just head over to nzsportradio.com. And thank you very much for joining me again, Stephen. We'll be back on Tuesday evening, as I say, to review the international season, as well as ask that serious question: should there be a Maori Super Rugby team? So yes, we'll be asking that. As I say, I might even clip out the bit from the interview that where Ash Dixon suggested, and we can have a listen to his thoughts before we discuss it.